We'll begin in our same stance, the feet quite close together. I'm just shifting around a bit to get the inside edges, the inner line of the foot, basically parallel. And getting a little more weight on that inner line. A little more weight at the front of the foot than the back. And then see if you can energize the inner line of the legs. So if you've come from the inner heel, the base of the big toe, come up through the inner thighs, especially as we get higher in the inner thighs, that we feel those adductor muscles engage. They both draw in towards each other, but also up into the thigh. So a little different here. We're powering on the inner thigh line, down to that inner edge of the foot. I'm just holding that for a moment more. And then we're going to ease that, relax that a bit. You can feel the weight move from the inner edge and the weight spread out more evenly. And we start to feel more contact with the outer edge of the foot. So now we've balanced the weight through the foot. And just see where we are front and back. And then with this awareness that we're creating for ourselves, especially through the thighs down to the feet, bring the attention now into the hips. And the low belly tends to have energized already by the time we've energized the thighs. And find the tailbone, sink it down. And we can use our fingers and just by touching on the abdominal wall, it'll energize moving inward. And we get this gentle lifting here at the low ribs. And every so often, just inspecting internally the placement of the tailbone, that sinking feeling. And then taking the attention up through the area of the ribs, the chest, and the back of the ribs. And before we actually work the hands and the breathing, just run the fingers up the center line. And just to feel, especially we get up around the collarbones, top of the ribs, that there's lift here. And as I lift my elbows here, I'm just trying to bring the shoulders, the weight of the shoulders off of the ribs. And from here, we'll just go with a breath. So whenever we do breathe in, just float the arms up all the way. So lifting at the back of the head, reaching through the fingers, sinking at the tailbone. At some point, we need to breathe out. The arms will simply come down with the breath. And touching the fingers at the low belly when it's time to breathing in, just running up the center line. And just one or two more. So right here, when we touch the low belly, find the tailbone, sink it down. Lifting the shoulders off. And right here, what we may find ourselves doing is tipping the head back, but lift up at the back of the head instead of tipping the head back. Whenever we finish the breath, we're gonna, on our next inhale, take the heels up, heels down and toes up. And one more time. So when the heels go down, we'll keep the toes up for a moment here. And holding up the big toes, so we can press the other toes down toward the ground. They'll all come up, and then the big toes will go down and side to side. As we do this, again, check in with the tailbone. It's so easy for the tailbone to start to point backwards, and then the low back, it arches inward. Okay, last time. We'll keep all the toes up for a moment and just see if you can spread them apart. So all toes pushing wide, and then shift the weight a bit through the front foot. So more weight at the base of the big toe, more weight going outward, and just gently, 1 or 2 times. And then come pretty neutral, put the toes down and just soften through the feet. Give them a chance to release. And let's loosen up the knees. We'll bend the knees. Get them nice and close to each other, letting them touch. Hands anywhere around the knee where it's a good place to hold. And really get this little circle happening from the knee. Every so often, we're just going to switch direction. Just let the ankles get moved around freely as the knees circle. Okay, and then just come easy into center, tuck the tailbone. Lift the shoulders up here as we tuck the tailbone. We can kind of get a stretch down the back. And then energize the glutes and gently squeeze the glutes into the hips. We're going to come up. Before we come up though, lift at the back of the head, base of the skull, reaching up. And all we're going to do when we breathe in is let the arms float out. And then just when we need that out breath, we'll take the arms down. We'll take our feet wider apart and think of the feet underneath the hips. Hands come on the hips. The knees bend a bit. And we just circle from the hip. So all the other joints are being moved around because we're circling at the hip. Changing our direction when we're ready. So we're going to get a change of direction, same number of times. And when that feels pretty balanced, just come in the center for a moment. Rather than do a circle, think of doing a flat figure 8. So we kind of loop out to one side, loop out to the other, coming through the center. Just find that in the body. When you're ready to change, when you come in the center, reverse direction. As we do this, tailbone's a little tucked, a little sinking feeling at the tailbone, and a little lifting feeling at the base of the skull. And maybe balance it out both directions. For ourselves, we feel balanced. We'll just make our way back into the center. And then here, just hands on the hips, we're just sitting down a bit. And as I sit down, checking the tailbone, the base of the skull. And then I'm going to breathe out. So as I breathe out, the hands slide down the legs. And then I'm going to get a rounded back. Hands are going to land somewhere above the knees where I can press weight through the palms and take weight out of the spine. I'm going to press the waist back. And I'm going to spread the shoulder blades. I'm going to lift up at the base of the skull. Keeping the hands here, when you need to breathe in, lift the heart, flatten the back, Keep lifting at the base of the skull, really stretching up. Keep a little tuck to the tailbone. So tailbone still pointing downward, but down and back. And when I want to exhale, I'm going to tuck the tailbone more so it's down and forward. And chin dropping in. And just bend the elbows a little more. Maybe come a feeling internally of being more rounded, a bit lower. We're going to use the breath to come tall. So on the inhale, float the arms up and the hands get in front of the face. Push the elbows, the shoulders up, and pull up the body with the shoulders. And then let the arms unfurl, reaching up. We'll look upward, gently move the hips forward. And then when we're ready to exhale, lift the back of the head, take the gaze outward, stay tall as we bring the arms down. Okay, so from here, just fine tune the feet so you've got a comfortable position. We're going to do a standing twist. The exhale takes our right side back, looking behind. Release the right arm and point behind. And breathing in, come forward, reaching up. And then down that opposite side of the body, going over just as far as is comfortable for the head. And inhale, back up on the same side. So just gently with our breathing. Okay, so we're going to do one more for each side of the body. Whenever we have a left side, that'll be our last. And whenever we're done, we just need that moment. All we're doing here, feeling the weight in the feet, balancing the feet, putting energy through the legs. So these thigh muscles, there's a real sense of them holding on to the thigh bones. The tailbone dropping enough that we open up the low back and lifting some of this weight of the shoulders out of our ribs and the base of the skull lifting up. And just have this powerful stance, just an internal strength. Okay, from here we're going to move, we're going to swing the heels out and then take the feet out and the heels out again. Fine tune this distance. Think of the heels being maybe just a little past the shoulders, the feet turned in a bit, and then we're going to bend the knees. So we've got to put this together so the joints right here are comfortable. We're not feeling strain. I'm going to sink my tailbone so the low belly's drawing inward. And then I'm going to press onto my feet and activate some muscles here by creating a feeling of the knees going apart. And we do that without straining the joint. So get that very fine energy through the thighs. And then the inner thigh muscles, see if you can activate these muscles. And I'm just tapping them to feel, yeah, they're working. And I want a feeling of them pulling towards each other up into the core. So this really stabilizes the low body. And then with that stability in the low body, with my hands around the hips, I can take the upper body side to side. with my hands at my hips, I can feel there's very little movement coming from the hip. Hips just kind of being dragged a bit. And just a couple more side to side. And then pausing in the center, we're now going to take the hands higher. We're at the base of the ribs. I'm going to keep that motion going. And there's kind of a gentle, I get over here at the left side, and there's that gentle push to the left hand and a push to the right hand. And I'm going to come a little higher, but I'm going to change the hands. Imagine a fist, right? Soft fist. I'm just going to rest it where I can, up the height that works. And then coming into center, we're going to take the arms even higher. So now they have to go all the way up and over onto the shoulders. And the fingertips just resting on the shoulders. Side to side, gently. And then let's come back in the center. So pausing for a moment. I'm going to check my tailbone, the back of the head. I'm going to check down my legs. And there's a little more energy I'm going to put in my legs, that feeling of pressing down and a gentle, clear squeezing, especially with the thigh muscles. I'm going to take my left elbow forward, my right elbow forward. I'm going to still look forward as I do this. So I don't really want to turn the hips or the head, at least not without deciding to. So here's the ribs and the shoulders moving. Okay, when the right is forward, the left back, pause there. And now I am going to look behind, looking over the left side. I'm going to look forward as I come forward. I'm going to stay forward till the right goes back, and then I'm going to look back. I'm going to come forward, do this once more for each side. And then when I'm forward again, I'm just going to release the arms, let them open out. And they're wide, palms just above the shoulders. I'm going to lift up at the back of the neck. Sink at the tailbone. I'm going to balance where the weight is in my feet. And then I'm looking straight ahead, looking downward a little bit. And I'm just going to slowly bring the arms forward where I can start to see the arms, the hands in the periphery of my vision. Not necessarily clearly, but there they are. And then from that place, I'm going to press upward and forward just a little bit, just to feel the movement through the shoulders. And then coming straight up. So pushing up through the palms, lifting the shoulders, sinking the tailbone, lifting at the back of the head. The distance between the arms is really given by keeping the shoulders comfortable. Right here, it's really the muscles that move and then create space for the joints to move. So the joints shouldn't have that scrunched up, crunchy feeling. And then from here, I'm going to soften, soften, soften. And then right out in front. I want to check the back body again. The back of the skull is lifting, the tailbone sinking, and the palms gently pushing outward. Now keep the chest forward. It's very tempting to start to swivel the hips. And I'm going to take this right hand, turn the fingers up, turn them down, and just send the elbow back. Now at a certain point here, the body wants to swivel and just keep the hips straight ahead. So we'll go slow, and the arm comes out, the other arm goes back. So if we take a twist, a swivel through the body, then the SI joint has to get involved. If I go slow and keep the hips forward, then rather than move the SI joint, I'm going to move the muscles on the front side of the hip, down psoas iliacus to inner thigh. To do that, I've got to ground energy in my legs, and I've really got to be conscious about what I'm moving. And the easiest way to see the difference, when you have the right arm straight out in front, just push a little through the hand and let the hips turn a little bit. And to get that turning, we've got to use the SI joint. And then rotate back. Do the same thing on the other arm. Push enough through the palm, you turn a bit, and you can feel the hip rotate. Now try it again without rotating the hip, just squaring the hip forward. Okay, so we've got the hip squared forward. Left arm is forward, it stays there. Right comes to join it. And then soften. Lift the heels, swing the heels in, put the feet down, walk them to a new space. So we do this core work. We have to be very conscious about what we're doing with our SI joint. It's a complicated joint, and we don't want to overload it. Okay, so let's work with the arms a bit. So here's the right arm off to the side. I'm rotating the arm so the fingertips point back, the thumb outward. I'm going to take the arm back behind my center line, and then the left hand up here on the breastbone, fingers really covering the collarbone. I'm going to bend my knees just a little so it's easier to work with my tailbone, reach up at the back of my head. And then I'm going to take this arm and move it back a little bit. And then I'm going to take the head and just tip towards the opposite shoulder, keeping my face straight ahead. And now I'm going to turn my face towards the right. And then keeping the face where it is, I'm going to move my eyes. I'm going to use my gaze to look for my left fingers and see if I can create a gentle, little more rotation in that right arm. And we usually start to feel a draw somewhere through this whole shoulder zone. And when we're ready to release, let's soften the gaze. Let's turn the face back forward, lift the head, and release the right arm. And just gently, softly rotating the arms. So this kind of pause between sides, use it to lengthen the core, a feeling of the ribs lifting, the tailbone sinking. And then for the left side, bending the wrist and rotating. So we press down and we move back a tiny amount. Again, not so we rotate, right? We want to try to keep the core basically centered. So we put the work inside the shoulder. Other hand on the breastbone, fingers placed around the collarbone. Always check here, once we get a basic position, tailbone sinking, back of skull lifting. And then we add by tipping and then rotating so the face turns back to the left. And then we drop the eyes without moving the head. And then just working inside the body. Want to check the length through our core, the weight in our feet. And exploring inside our shoulder, seeing where we can work with the muscles to release, to deepen the work in the joint. So we're creating space for the joint by how we use the muscle. Okay, so to come out of here, soften the eyes, turn the face forward again, bring the head up, release the arm, and just gentle movement through the arms. Just letting the body find the movements that kind of make sense for it right now. And let that go down into the fingers, through the elbows, the wrists. And want to find out for ourselves, kind of where the stiffness is and figure out how to play with the stiffness. Okay, and then when we're ready, just coming a bit stiller. And actually, let's get the forearms a stretch. So I take my right hand out in front. I take my left hand, it's going to come over top. So my left fingertips over top of the palm and the thumb underneath. And I'm just going to point the fingertips down. So this left hand is going to move the fingertips back towards my hips. So I'm gently pointing the fingertips toward the hips. I want to keep the shoulder relaxed. Shoulder sometimes wants to crawl up tall. I want it to be comfortably just even. And I find this place, and I just carefully press forward through the base of the palm, draw back with the right hand, and we're looking to create a stretch here on that inner forearm. Okay, we're going to release that. So just soften that left, release the right, and maybe just a couple of grips and movement there. Sometimes the thumb joint feels that the most, and that's a joint we need to be polite to. So for the other side, same thing, hand comes over, fingers on top, thumb below, and then we tip the fingers back and down, and then we gently start to move down the length of the arm, gently pressing at the base of the palm. And the other hand, just carefully drawing those fingers in toward the hip. Soften the shoulder. And check through the core body. So that little sinking of the tailbone keeps a bit of length through the lumbar. Keeping length in the upper spine by lifting the base of the skull. And then we're going to release by softening the grip on that palm. A little bit of work for the fingers, for the wrists. So we have a soft fist here and we roll the hands one over the other and creating this flexi motion through the wrist. Okay. And just give them a chance to let go for a moment. And when we're ready for a new stance, we'll use wider feet. So this is, in this position, the feet are wider than we've been before, but always a place where we feel powerful in our legs. So we never want to feel delicate in the feet, want to feel well placed. Both hands touch the right leg. I'm just going to slide the hands down. As I go down, I'm going to drop the head over, going as low as is comfortable for me. Take a nice long end to the exhalation. And when it is time to breathe in, coming back up, the hands running up the leg, across the belly, finishing an inhale. When I need to breathe out, running down the other leg. And the breathing in, when it occurs, it just brings me up. Just finishing that inhale, feeling tall, and running down the leg again. And it works best for ourselves if we're just flowing with our breath tempo. And just noticing the sensation, both the sensation of the breath and the sensations that arise from the position itself. Won't necessarily be the same on each side of the body. Let's do it once more for each side. Just having the arms run down the leg, taking our time to finish the out breath. And then at some point, when we're up, we'll just pause for a moment here. See if the feet want an adjustment. When we go down the right, we'll stay a bit longer on the right side. We'll put the arms to work. So exhale ourselves down the right leg. At some point, we need a breath. And when we do, we're on the right leg, we're going to lift the right arm up and press up in the palm. Take the gaze over to the right side, and then gently taking the gaze upward. And when we're ready to breathe out, bring the right arm down. Take our time on our breathing out. Let the head drop. And then when we need a breath, it's the left arm. We'll stay right here. Take the left arm up. And although we press up in the hand, we also want to give some attention to the core. Again, it is possible to create a tiny tuck to the tailbone and moving forward through the base of the skull. And we protect our knees in these positions by putting the leg muscles to work. So we're going to take that left arm down as we breathe out. We're going to release the head over. And then for the breath, we'll just draw ourselves tall. And we'll just pause for an extra breath when we're back up here. So as I have that extra breath, I'm going to check my tailbone and the base of the skull. Breathing out, going down that left leg. And finishing the out breath. When it is time for breathing in, on the left leg, we're going to lift the left arm, going to press up through the palm. I'm going to look backwards and upwards. And then I'm going to release the arm down with the exhale, release the neck. And there's no rush, but when it is an inhale, it's going to be the right arm that lifts up. I'm going to get that little tuck in my tailbone, that length to the base of the skull. And then when I exhale, I'll take the arm down, I'll drop the head, I'll take the time to finish that breath. And when I do breathe in, I'm going to bring the hands up, hands on the low belly. Check the spine once again. And then turning out the right leg. I'm just going to bend the knee, going to lean out that way a bit, straighten up, then to the left. Okay, so when we go to the left, let's bend the knee. So left hand here on the thigh, my right hand, I'm just going to reach down, ankle, foot, ground, whatever it is. And then the inhale comes up. For the other side, first I bend the leg. So right leg, right hand on the thigh. And now left hand can reach down where it goes. So for ourselves, want to work with the distance between the feet, making sure that we feel strong, we feel powerful in our legs. How deep we go varies day to day. Now, when we get to the left side, we come over, we're going to take that right hand low, and then see if you can take the left hand onto the sacrum. So with the left hand on the sacrum, we tuck our tailbone a little bit, we reach out through the back of the head, and then press a bit of weight into that right foot, that back foot. And then when we're ready, we just come up with an inhale, pressing on the left foot. We come up, we come to center. We're going to change, the right knee bends. So initially I've got my right hand on the right thigh. This gives me a bit of support here. When I'm ready, left hand comes down where it can. And then the right hand runs back to my sacrum. I'm going to tuck the tailbone a little bit. Reach out with the back of the head. I'm going to press in the back heel. When I'm ready, an inhale is going to bring me up. When we get to center, there's always the option of an extra breath in center. When I'm ready for the other side though, hand on the thigh, knee bends. So this back arm touches down where it can land. Any place that it can make contact is a good place. And then the right hand, left side, left hand, shifts to the sacrum. Right foot, bit more weight. And if I like here, I can look over to my left side. When I'm ready to leave, an inhale centers me over the left thigh, brings me tall. And we just go smoothly to our new side. So right leg's bent, right hand on the thigh. As I lean out, my left hand comes low. Once I can get some weight into my left arm, my right hand runs to the sacrum. Lengthen the spine, make contact with the back foot. And then I'm just going to look towards that right side, looking behind. And coming up when we're ready with the in-breath. Okay, and we'll pause when we're back up. That's when I get a slightly different position, distance between the feet. Okay, and then the in-breath brings the arms up. Now we're going to do a variation, going to do things just a little quicker. So I'm going to turn the left leg out just a bit, bend the knee not quite as much, and this right hand is going to swing down, see where it can go. Left arm's going to reach up. Inhale brings me back up. And then change the legs a little bit. So right knee's bending a little bit, left arm's dropping down towards the foot. So if I think of my arms as one long pole, right? I want to see if I can have energy palm to palm and then look towards the upper palm. But you don't need to turn the head all the way, right? We want the eyes to move in their sockets. We want to keep the neck open and long rather than creating extra bend in the neck. We want extra work from the eyes. Okay, let's do this once more for each side of the body. Okay, excellent. We come to center, we'll bring the arms down, and I'll work the feet in. So I'm going to get my feet, so it feels to me like my heels are basically under my shoulders. I'm going to bend my knees. I'm going to rest my hands on my thighs. The key to this movement is two parts. One, that the knees are comfortable. And so we have to find for our own anatomy where that is. And then the other part is there's real weight through the arms into the palms. And that lets me take weight out of my low back. And with the weight out of my low back, I can very easily tuck the tailbone, tuck the chin, and then reversing, sinking the tailbone back and down, lifting at the base of the skull. Just easy back and forth, 1 or 2 times here. We're both getting this lovely spinal movement, but also proving to ourselves that we've put weight through the arms into the thighs. And then just coming a little bit tucked, releasing back out of a little bit of tuck, but not really reversing the spine completely. What I'm going to do is bend my right elbow outward, take my left shoulder into the center line, and I'm going to look to the right. And then I'll use my inhale, I'll come to the center. I'll bend my left elbow, my right shoulder moves in, and then I look to the left. I'm going to go smoothly back and forth a couple more times. So when we look left, there's our last side. After we've looked left, we come center. And then what I'm going to see if I can do is bend my knees a little more and get my hands to touch the ground. Might need to adjust where the feet are. And then I've got my heels off the ground and my weight's either on my palms or my fingers. Once again, I'm going to sink my tailbone. I'm going to lift up at the base of the skull. I'm just pausing here for a moment. So if it's okay for the feet, right? This is actually deep work all through the legs to the feet. If it's okay to stay here, if it's not, we just sit down because that's our next move. If it's okay to be here, I put my palms flat and I'm going to squeeze my legs against my arms. And then I'm going to push out with my elbows. So there's a connection being made between upper arms and inner legs. I'm going to tuck the chin a bit, lift up at the base of the skull, lift in the low belly, and then lift the hips just an inch or two. And squeeze with the legs, press out with the arms, bring the low belly in, and then really work on rounding the back and start to press the spine both round and outward. So back of the waist pushing outward, back of the neck lifting upward. So the weight's going to naturally shift a bit toward the hands. And then I'm going to ease back down. I'm going to release that energy in the legs, let the hips sink downward a bit. And then we're just going to bring ourselves down to sitting as we're ready to. And once we get down, we'll just stretch our legs out in front and then just take the time to give the legs a bit of a shake. Okay. So when we're ready, from shaking the legs, just to taking the knees easy one side and the other. We don't even have to go all the way down. So here we are using the SI joint, using the hip sockets. There's 6 joints through the hips, another joint at the pubic bone, and another joint, L5-S1. So they're all being moved here. So being polite. Okay. So when we're ready, knees are going to drop to the right. I'm going to sit myself up so those knees can go all the way down. It's going to change my angle a bit here. And then I'm just going to come down onto the elbow. So I want to make sure that where the weight is comfortable. So I'm on my right hip, right at the socket. I want that to be comfortable placement. The knees have to be okay. And then I'm going to take myself a bit lower. So resting the head on the palm, perhaps, that's optional. Stretch out the arm. Just what works for us in this position. We want to get nice and low because what I'm going to do is my right knee is going to stay on the ground, but my right foot comes up and down, makes a handful of lifts here. And then when that feels like enough, I'm going to leave that right foot down, and we're a bit low to lift the right knee. If you do that, you can feel potentially it's not the best thing for the hip socket, so we'll leave the right knee to later. I'll come up just a little higher. For me, being on the forearm works well. I want the back foot, the left foot, whatever height that is. And, you know, if it's easy, play with coming a little higher. At some point, it's hard. So all we're doing, we're keeping this back knee down, lifting the foot. At some point, the body says, that's great, I've done my set. And now we're going to work with our left knee, the back knee. It's an easy position. The foot staying down, knees lifting. Often here we can be a bit higher. And just as many as appropriate. And now if we come, again, looking for the right height for ourselves, lifting the right knee as we're taller is now easier on that. We've shifted the weight from being all on that socket. Okay, so we'll just let that right release. Now, how do we change sides? There's all kinds of ways, but a fun way to experiment with is I'm going to lift my back knee. I'm going to energize the back ankle, right? So flex the ankle, put some energy there, maybe even press that inner edge, some part of it down a little bit, feel there's energy in the leg, and then I'm going to kick the leg forward and put the hip down. And then here's the right knee getting lifted, energizing the ankle again, pushing out. And I just gently bounce the legs. I'm going to change sides in a similar way. So left leg, I'm going to pull up the knee and slide the foot in, have the hands help. And then I'm going to send my weight to the left. And then that hip is naturally going to start to move. The leg can roll inward. That's important that we get that turning of the leg. And then the knee just does a simple job of bending back. Once I'm in this position, I'm just going to walk myself lower. I'm just knowing or finding how low I need to get so that I can lift this front foot, my left foot. The knee basically stays on the ground. Okay, and when we feel like that's a set, usually for the back, we can come a bit higher. So right foot, right knees down, right foot lifts. And we just find for ourselves what height that's going to be. And when we're done, the foot rests down, the knee lifts. Again, we can potentially do this a little higher. We don't have to force that. And then when we're ready, right knee stays down. We're higher again, a little bit higher, finding where it works. So the left knee can lift. Keeping the joints comfortable. They may have to work a bit, but we have to know for ourselves that difference between a certain kind of strain, which isn't good. And we all kind of intuitively know it, and to trust that we have to find the right position where something like this is possible. And when that feels like enough, we're going to get ourselves out of here in the same way. So I'm going to go back to my right knee. I'm going to bring it up, and then my right ankle and foot is active. So put some energy all through that leg. And when I've done that, I either lift the foot and swing it out, or I kind of drag it out and then stretch it out, shift the weight even in the hips. Here's that left knee coming up, push out in the ankle, gently giving the legs a little shake. Maybe a little bit of gentle wag here. And then let's just easy cross the ankles. So it doesn't matter which leg is in front to start. We'll do both sides. I want a little bit of effort from the ankle. Once I've got the legs sorted, I want to check in the hips, sinking at the tailbone, lifting through the length of the back body, reaching up at the base of the skull. And there's a feeling of lifting our ribs, our chest, out of our hips. So do find the back of the waist. This is a very small movement, but there's a real feeling of the back of the waist going backwards rather than the lumbar spine, the back of the waist coming forward. So once I've got the back body in play, I can inhale, float the arms up. So there's two approaches to what we're going to do. One is to bring the arms up, and the palms, they're moving towards each other. So simple hands, straight wrists, lifting in the shoulders, tucking the chin and reaching up at the back of the head, sinking the tailbone, and just reach, reach, reach. And then soften, we'll bring the arms down. So arms down below the shoulders, bring them forward, touch the palms, and then float them up in front. So as we bring the arms up in front, pretty much everybody has a place where things start to feel a little glued together. And we just need to pause in that place for a moment. Maybe press out through the fingertips, lift a little more, let things soften. And then we may go a bit further. But for all of us, there's a place that represents that's as far as we can go. And we just want to find that place and be able to stay right there, keeping the spine long. And then we're going to soften the arms and float them down. I'm going to take a very simple twist here. So towards the right fingertips behind, the left fingertips in front. I want to balance myself so I'm not leaning forward, I'm not leaning backward. And then I'm just going to turn. So the shoulder starts, the ribs follow, the head follows. And I get this twist, but I'm still working, lifting at the base of the skull. And then when I inhale, I'm going to release the arms, I'm going to float them out forward. When I exhale, I'm just going to change. So hands touch down on the fingertips, shoulder, ribs, neck lifts, tailbone sinks. I want to feel that my weight is vertical. So think of the skull above the hips. And when I inhale, I'm going to float forward. And then let's just change sides. So first, ankles comfortable, bit of energy in the ankles. Once we have the legs, we want the hips, the tailbone dropping. We want the chest lifting out of the hips. The shoulders, the back of the head, they're lifting off the ribs. So two versions. We'll start with the arms straight, inhaling up, going wide. So palms face each other. And we just reach up. So initially, we really want to get the sensation of length through the core. The tailbone sinking, back of the skull lifting, back of the waist, just easing back that tiny bit. And then really bring the shoulders up, making sure they stay comfortable. And then when we're ready to, just softening the arms, letting them go wide, letting them come forward. I'm going to bring the palms in contact. Use my in-breath. As we go higher, we're going to get to a place where we kind of stick and we just pause there. I want to explore from the inside what can be released, what can be adjusted, and then see if we can go a little further. But always, the most important part is the length in the back body. And just gently reaching through the fingertips. And at the same time, think about the knees. And they can press wide and down, and the tailbone sinks. And then we're going to soften. We're going to bring the arms down. We'll take our inhale, and the exhale gives us a twist. So bring the arms, breathing out, fingertips behind, fingertips in front. Feel the skull over the hips, the back shoulder moving backward, the ribs turning. And we don't twist so far that the back of the waist pushes forward. We keep the tailbone tucked, the base of the skull lifted. And we need an inhale, releasing, coming forward. We want an exhale. We go to the opposite side. And feeling vertical. Staying in touch with the back of the waist, the base of the skull. And releasing when we inhale, turning forward. And then when we're ready, I'm going to undo those legs. Maybe give them a little shake. And then let's put the body on the ground. So we'll come onto the back with the knees bent, the feet flat. And just give the body a chance to breathe. Allowing a big inhale. So both filling the lungs to the collarbones and having the belly fill. And when it is time to exhale, having the belly sink and releasing the ribs. And then when it's time to breathe out, reach down for the knees and draw the knees in towards the armpits. And then lifting the feet up higher than the knees. We're going to create a handful of circles at the ankles. Letting the feet move freely, having our circles go both directions. And then coming neutral. And then take the feet in circles around the knees, above and below, out to the sides. We use the hands to support the weight of the thighs. And then coming neutral. And just put the hands on top of the knees. Use the hands to take the knees wide apart and then circle them close together. And circling both directions. And then slowing down, bringing the knees towards the armpits. We're just going to hold the legs where the back of the waist releases down toward the mat. And then bring the knees close together. And let's lift our feet so the heels are above our knees. And hold the legs right there. Tailbones lifted off the mat, and release the arms. And reach the arms straight up for the ceiling. Bend at the wrist and rotate the arms. And then push up through the palms, pressing up toward the ceiling. Tuck the chin and move the eyes so the eyes are looking downward towards the chest. The back of the head pressing away from the shoulders, the tailbone up off the mat. And then just push up a little bit higher, keeping the spine flattened toward the mat. And now the arms, they lower straight down alongside the ears. And push out through the palms. Push the palms away from the ears. Keep the chin tucked and the gaze going down toward the chest. And then separate the arms wide apart. Take them wide, almost to shoulder height, just above the shoulders. And pressing out again at the palms. And then again, check that the back of the head pushes away from the shoulders. The back of the waist sinks downward. And then bring the arms close to the hips. So they just keep going down, down, down. Just off of the hips and the palms pushing away from the head. The chin is tucked. You can get the belly to move into the low back. And then lift the arms up higher. So they're just below the knees. And pushing out and up. Feel the shoulders move off the mat. Tuck the chin. And think about the back of the neck going down toward the mat, even as the shoulders push up away. And then soften the arms. Take hold of the knees. Let the legs relax. Bring the legs in closer. And when you come to breathing out, so lift the upper body. And the chin is tucked, and we look down between the legs, looking toward the feet. And then we need a breath. Back of the head onto the mat, and guide the feet down to the mat. The feet about hips width apart. And just adjust the placement of the feet where we have a good position where we can lift the hips. We'll take the arms out sideways from the shoulders. Let's turn the palms down into the ground, tucking the chin. Initially tuck the tailbone, so just the top of the hip has weight into the mat. Add weight into the soles of the feet. As you breathe in, let the hips lift. And the hips only have to internally feel like they're in a line between the shoulders and the knees. Let's see if you can pause there. The chin tucked. Maybe add a little contact through the fingertips. Doesn't have to be a lot of pressure, but we can clearly feel the fingertips. And then the backs of the shoulders. Add a little more pressure from the backs of the shoulders into the mat. And then a small internal move again. Push the knees away from the hips. And then let's release the hips onto the mat. Once we have the weight in the hips, reach for the knees, bring them in toward the shoulders. And then cross the wrists. So a hand on the opposite knee. The heels above the knees, so the tailbone's off the ground. And once you find this position, release the right arm. Let the right arm go vertical. And rotate the arm so you push up through the palm. And right here, just feel the back of the waist. Allow it to release toward the mat. And then lower the arm alongside the ear and push out in the palm. And then take the left heel straight down onto the mat, the knees still bent. Press a little weight in the left heel, feel the back of the waist. And then scrape out the left leg long, pushing out in the heel, pushing out in the palm. And then right here, the back of the waist. So if you can work with the core to sink the waist into the mat. And we're going to leave as we inhale. As we breathe in, the left leg comes vertical. And then the right arm comes vertical. And for a moment, they both push upward. Left knee bends and right hand returns to the knee. And check that the tailbone is curled up, that the neck is long. Releasing the left arm, taking it vertical, rotating the arm, pushing up through the palm. And then bring the arm down alongside the ear, push to the wall behind you, sink the back of the waist, and then take the right heel to the mat. And we're going to slowly scrape out the right heel, taking the right leg long, push in, push out through the heel, push out through the palm, and sink the back of the waist into the mat. And then with an inhale, we'll take the right leg vertical, we'll take up the left arm, we're going to push up, and then bend the knee, put the hand back on the knee. Now we're going to repeat, but we'll go a little quicker. So first, check the tailbones off the mat, extend the right arm toward the ceiling, down by the ear, take the left heel down, extend the leg. Just want that moment where we're checking the back of the waist, and then the left leg is vertical, right arm is vertical, pushing up, and then bend the knee, hand on knee. Check tailbone, then extend the left arm, rotating, bring the arm by the ear, pushing out through the arm, taking the right heel down, extending the leg. Just a press to check the back of the waist is going into the mat. And then that right leg's vertical, left arm is vertical. And we'll bend the knee, put the hand on the knee. And one more time, each side. So we extend the right arm, we check the hips, we lower the arm, we lower the leg, extending the leg, checking the low back, and then taking the leg upward, the arm upward, and the hand back on the knee. And then the left arm vertical, down by the ear, right heel down to the mat, right leg extends, checking the back of the waist, and then the right leg is up, left arm is up, bending the knee, and then releasing the wrists so we've got a hand on their own knee, and just letting the legs relax. So we've got the weight of our legs in our hands. And then run the hands down the insides of the legs. Reach down where we can. So there are many places to hold, and just find a comfortable one. Can be the ankles, the outsides of the feet, the big toes. Wherever's a good place for today, can be the heels. And then we're going to see if we can open the legs up a bit. Take the feet toward the ceiling. And just let the knees sink down. So we can very gently explore the low back and in the hips here in two ways. One is to let the hips roll right up. The other is to gently see if we can bring the top of the hip onto the mat. For ourselves, just very small movements in the back of the waist, the lumbar spine. And just carefully, gently shifting the placement of the weight. And then let's try something side to side. So carefully push outward through the left heel, the leg partially or fully straightening, and bending the left again. carefully pushing out in the right. And just easy, side to side. And then after a left, just having, after right, having both knees bent. And then just slide the hands back up toward the knees, hug the knees in for a moment, then guide the feet back to the mat. So once the feet are on the mat, let the knees drop apart. And take the attention to the feet. Find the outside edges of the feet and add just a little more weight at the outside edges. And then for the right foot, just press down through the outside edge and push out through the foot to lengthen the leg. And then the right soften, and then the left foot pushing down through the outside edge, extending the leg, letting it soften. And just have a moment here, letting the legs release. Let the arms rest. Adjusting the spine. And then the attention just on the body breathing. And releasing control of the breath. Simply being aware, observing the body breathing. And moving again through the fingers, the toes, and the ankles and the wrists. As we breathe in, reaching the arms up overhead, pushing down in the heels, reaching out in the fingertips. As we breathe out, drawing our knees in, holding with the hands, and shifting our weight one side then the other. And then letting the weight go all the way to either side, bringing ourselves up to sitting.